everyone. Welcome back to Besties, Books, and Brews. How's everyone doing today?
Awesome.
Yay. Very excited.
Super excited. So today we have the voice of Cassian in the dramatized version of ACOTAR, Mr. Jon Vertullo. We're so excited to have him here.
Yay.
Stay tuned for this awesome interview.
Let's take it away.
First of all, Jon, thank you so much for joining us on our podcast. We are really excited to have you here. You have done such amazing work with Cassian's character, and honestly, we're excited to listen to any other narration that you've done. So,
thank you very much.
Of course, we wanted to get started with just kind of telling you about Besties, Books, and Brews, kind of like how we came to be. First of all, my name is Alyssa, and everybody's going to go around and introduce themselves after, but just really quick synopsis is basically we're four best friends that love to read. And we all kind of talked about reading and just the different books that we were reading. We thought, hey, why the heck not start a podcast about it? And this is just kind of something we do for fun to talk about books, how we rated them and what we liked about them. So everybody's going to go around now and just say who they are.
I'm Nikki.
I'm Sarah.
And I'm Loriana.
Hello.
And we are Besties, Books, and Brews.
Yes.
So we have, I don't know how many questions. There's like a good amount of questions. We have some questions for you about narrating, about playing Cassian, just in general, and for future works that you have. So Lori's going to go ahead and kick it off.
So tell us about yourself and how you got into voice acting. And then also, where did you learn the technical aspects for the job?
So I guess first things first, I got into voice acting through my wife, actually. So she used to work on set. Now it's cool because post-production is now almost entirely from home. But back in the day, she used to work on set, and she met a woman on set named Heidi Rue, who is the co-owner of Atlanta Voiceover Studio. They started chatting, and my wife was explaining that I was in the midst of transitioning out of my job at the time and was getting into performing full time. And Heidi said, like, well, hey, look, I own a studio with my husband. If he's interested in performing, like, it's a great additional way to kind of one more arrow to add to the quiver. So you should come by, take a class, see if he likes it. Well, I did, and I kind of haven't looked back from there. I think I've taken like every class they offer, actually. And now I'm actually one of the employees there. I'm one of the classroom engineers. So students come in, I engineer them, I get them kind of set up in the booth, set everything up, and give them their recordings afterward. So the other question was about how I learned the technical aspect. Part of that was my background. So I didn't go to school for performing. I actually went to school for film and television production. I was originally planning on working behind the camera. So that's where a lot of the foundational technical stuff came into play. Then once I started getting more into it, there was kind of an easier way in, I'll say, because I had some foundational training, and then the technique of, okay, here's where we place a mic, here's the preferred mic to use and why, and the nitty-gritty of a lot of the programs I'd already had experience with. And then it was just kind of adding to my experience and using it to support my performing rather than it being the thing that makes me money.
Wow,
Nice.
cool.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
This is not the next question we have, but I'm just curious, like how, I guess this kind of transitions into that. How long ago was that your wife introduced you to Heidi? And then I guess since then, how many books have you narrated?
So let's see. It's been it's been
Oh great. Now that's song in my head.
yeah, I win. So it's been, I think, since 2018 or 2017, 2018, when I started pursuing acting to try to transition out of.
Right.
I had started performing when I was 10.
Wow.
But no one in my family had any kind of experience with a creative industry. So no one in my family knew a way in. We're like, oh, well, maybe you like work on set and then you get noticed, and that's how you get cast. For the record, that's not how that works at all. But I'm like, well, seems reasonable, sure.
Right.
So I went to school to get trained in film and TV. And I really enjoyed it, but I enjoy performing more. So yeah, probably 2017, 2018. And then as far as the transition to doing it full time, it's been about 2 years that I've been doing it full time.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
But I was at the point where it was pretty much, I'd burned every vacation day, every sick day. I was doing, like, I was taking unpaid days and making it up over the weekend, not with overtime, but with like standard rate.
Yeah.
And it just hit a tipping point. Books that I've completed, I think I'm up to like 60 something.
Oh,
at this
wow.
point.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I was not expecting that number with like 2017, 2018, and
Right.
2 years full time.
Now that said, with a lot of those aren't full books. I'm in the cast. You know, I might not even be the main character. I might just have a couple of lines, but that's kind of, at this point, I think I'm up to like 60 something.
That's still a really
That's
great
still impressive.
accomplishment. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's been, books have kept me busy, so I'm very appreciative.
So Jon, in your opinion, what would you say makes a great voice actor? And do you have any tips for aspiring ones?
I feel like the things that make a great voice actor are the same things that make a great actor. Because at the end of the day, at least the way I view voice acting, it's acting. It's all acting. There are some different techniques that you'll use for, you know, mic work and you know, how big or small you play it, depending on what type of project it is, or if it's a video game or like children's animation. Those are two very different approaches. But at the end of the day, it's how well can you empathize and take on the worldview of a character that you didn't create. And sometimes you might have written that character, but more often than not, you're coming into the writer's world. So how well can you adopt someone else's worldview? And if you can adopt that at the snap of a finger, then cool. You're off to the races. That's you already have a head start. And the technical stuff, once you kind of get past a good enough threshold, you really don't need anything more. And I think that's maybe a pitfall that I see some people fall into, where they obsess over the technical and they forget that at the end of the day, the performance is what books the job. It's not, you know, how fancy your mic is. That's how well did you perform the character and honor the writer, and honor the director, and be able to shift in the middle of a performance. You might, you know, really commit to one thing and they just give you a little redirect. How quickly can you change on the fly too?
So, did you read ACOTAR prior to being Cassian, like when you tried out for it or when you got the part?
No. Yeah, so it was, I'd never heard of it. Basically I got an email from Colleen, the director, saying like, hey, we want you to audition for this role. I think this was only like my second project with graphic audio at the time.
Oh my God.
So I didn't know the routine either. I didn't know, like, normally the director just has carte blanche and they cast you. But for bigger projects, they go through an audition project just like, you know, every other audition that I do all day, every day. So I didn't think it was out of the ordinary. I was like, oh, great. And she actually wanted to do a directed session. Cool. Okay. Go in, do the audition. Great. And then I get an email a few weeks later. Hey, by the way, you're Cassian. And as I'm looking, I was like, oh, this like has a wiki page and like is a New York Times bestseller. Oh, this is like a big,
kind of a big deal.
Cool. Okay. Don't mess up. Got it. Got it.
I'm curious because Cassian didn't have any parts in the first book. So by then, was the first book, by the time you were auditioning, the first book was already out on graphic audio?
I don't think so, because I think they did. I could be totally off. Oh, maybe it was. the timeline for when I was made aware of it, I don't know if the first part had already come out yet. It might have been in production, but it might not have come out.
Gotcha.
Because it's sort of like a rolling process for when we're in the middle of production and then when we're actually doing releases. So we could be working on like one book ahead, and they're just releasing the last section of the previous one as we're already in production for the next one.
Oh, okay.
So they could have even still been in the recording process and just started to roll out into the next one, since it kind of went from one to the next, to the next, to the next.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
So yeah, I get this email, and it was just ACOTAR. There wasn't any separation of, hey, you won't be in the first section, but you'll be in the second section. I just kind of like, all right, here's a script, go forth. And then they kind of cut it up in post, as I understand it. Now, some of them we've done multiple sections, but yeah, as I recall, it was just kind of like, all right, here's the first book, and then there's a break in the script where it's like end of disc 1 or disc 2 or however it's broken down. So they know where their cuts have to happen, but in the session we just go straight through. So she's just getting all of the recordings in place. They start assembling, and then they'll go back and do pickups if needed.
So after getting the role, did you actually delve into the research of Cassian to figure out what your character was about?
Yes. So thankfully we do get a breakdown of the character too, when we're doing auditions like that. They usually try to they want you to book the job. So they try to give you the best possible chance. So I had the breakdown that Colleen provided, and then I started doing my own research and was finding fan art and descriptions, and was just kind of trying to skim through and find sections that he appeared in. So yeah, it was really fascinating to be like, okay, I did research before the audition and had an idea, and then I did more after. Like, oh, now I got to really do the thing. And so I go in after the fact. It's like, oh, got it. He's a Spartan, but with an attitude. And like a really wry. He has a sense of humor, and he does not care what he says to anyone. So he rides this line between like, sometimes he's the comic relief, but he also is there to cut through any flowery language that anyone's using and just explain a situation how it is. And he's there to help just cut through red tape. So, oh, okay, that changes a little bit of the approach. Got it.
You're reminding me how much I love Cassian's character.
I know.
Yeah,
I know.
he's a lot of fun to play.
I think he's my favorite. I know that's
thank you.
No, I'm totally team Cassian as well.
I appreciate it.
Love it.
Yeah, you've been enjoying that last book, right?
Sure have.
Yeah, that one hits a little different than the others,
yes.
huh?
Yes.
I don't mind.
Cool. Excellent.
Yeah.
Good.
SJM decided to get much spicier with that last book.
I don't know. Someone was in a good mood and just like.
I think maybe she just had a sweet spot for Cassian. I'm hoping she does the same thing for Azrael, but we'll see.
Oh, there you go.
So
yeah, ride it off into the sunset.
There you go.
Yeah, exactly.
Just
keep the momentum going.
Want to interpret that. Yeah.
How did you decide on the voice to use for Cassian? And just like as a caveat to that, I gotta say your natural voice sounds so much like him. Like I can just picture it.
Yeah.
It does. As you're talking.
Yep.
So, kind of jumping back to the audition. So we do the audition, and again, this is directed. So Colleen was on the call with me, and she was able to all right, we ran through a scene, and she goes, I love the emotional placement. Can you just make your voice deeper? Sure. But me being me, I was like, okay, what can I do? What sort of attitude can I play to make sure that I not just am thinking, okay, deeper voice, but thinking oh, here's why it's deeper, justify it.
Right.
I had just finished Under the Red Hood, which is an animated Batman film, and Jensen Ackles plays Red Hood.
Mhm.
Oh, I know.
Oh,
Nikki
yes.
knows that. Sure, she's in love with Jensen Ackles.
I am.
So, and I was like, oh, well, as like everything I'm reading about this guy, he's kind of like a Dean Winchester-esque person. So, like, let me see if I can inject a little Jensen Ackles, Dean Winchester attitude and approach, and maybe a little texture, and Cassian was born.
Oh, I love that.
Love
Yes.
it. Yeah.
My
I
supernatural
can see
loving
it.
heart loves that.
Absolutely.
The fangirl heart aflutter.
Yes.
Yes.
The fanboy heart aflutter. Like, I'm a huge
Yeah.
fan of it too.
Careful, you're gonna make my camera turn off again.
Yeah, see, yeah. I gotta make sure not to get it too excited. So,
So, John, I know you said that you enjoyed playing Cassian, but what are your thoughts on his character?
I mean, I've loved his arc. He's someone who I would want to be friends with. Again, like, he is so willing to just call people and situations out that it's sort of that idea of you need someone to keep you honest. And I think Cassian provides that for all of his friends. And he gets really uncomfortable if he's ever put in a situation where he can't just do that. Anytime he has to follow decorum, he bristles. But he's an extremely regimented person. And it's interesting, too, because he is so disciplined. This is like the one area of his life where he almost doesn't have the same discipline. He has a soldier's mentality in some situations, and then a disciplinarian in the others, and then just kind of like a rascal in every other situation. So it's fascinating to find like the justification behind, okay, in this situation, his gut reaction is telling him to do X or Y, and that might not be for the best, but in his head, this is the best thing to do right now. And again, he gets tenser if he's put in a situation where he can't just do his first instinct. Nuance, not usually a strong suit. So it's fun to play characters that are just, they're very confident in their decision making, because the real world's not that black and white. So getting to play someone that gets their horizons broadened even a little bit is always fun.
So, were you shocked by any of the plot lines that happened to Cassian?
Oh, good question. I don't think so. I think as things were happening, they kind of felt right in the sense that Sarah J. Maas does this thing where she'll kind of follow a trope up to a point to kind of set maybe have the starting pieces, and then that character, once they're on their own 2 feet, it seems to me that they're allowed to walk.
Mm-hmm.
And so things felt like a natural progression for him. He didn't feel terribly static or one note. And the world around him kind of changes. So him being frustratingly willing to change if he really has to felt right and good. And it was nice to see an arc. And again, he's set up as kind of a tropey character initially, and then he's allowed to kind of be his own person. And I really appreciate that from a performance standpoint.
Yeah, you nailed her writing on the head. Yeah.
So because this was graphic audio and there was a lot more that was involved, like you had sound effects and dialogue and fight scenes and of course the spicy scenes, what did you find most challenging about doing this type of recording?
So graphic audio is somewhat unique in that everything is recorded basically in order, chronologically. So as an actor, you have to have access to your gain controls, because you'll be running through, and sometimes if it's a really big scene or there's a lot of fighting, you'll push it to the end, but usually you'll do all the efforts and fighting and screaming and yelling as you're going in the natural progression of the story. So you have to constantly be like changing your settings as you're going, and they have you record on your end. You send them the files. So you have to kind of split your attention. So one eye has to be on your levels and making sure that you're giving them a good recording. And then the other eye has to be on the script and the performance and making sure you're hitting the emotional beats you want to hit. So that's probably the biggest challenge. but as someone that has a technical background, I like that as a challenge. It's fun. And I can also see like, okay, oh, hang on, that was hot. All right, let me try that again. Oh, hang on, that was okay. I can find a sweet spot. Okay. Oh, if I project it this way, or if I play off the mic like that, okay, cool, we can get a different sound for that. Oh, I'm supposed to be coming in from this side and moving across. Do we want to try me physically doing it? And then it becomes a conversation with the director for what they have in mind. And it's a really fun collaboration to try to make a scene have depth and not just be everyone talking kind of at the same level in the same space, and actually getting to layer everything for, how far away is this person? Are you calling out? Are they walking towards you as you're calling? So you change the level of projection as they walk closer. With a fight, did you fire something off that was ranged and now it's up close and it's almost too close now and you're trying to create distance? So all those little things, just it's a blast to get to play with.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah, it sounds like fun.
Yeah. It sounds like your own little playroom.
Exactly.
I am absolutely fascinated by voice acting in general. Like, I just recently got into audiobooks within the last year, and honestly, listening to them, I'm like, because I picture it in my head as it's happening. So it's just really cool hearing you talk about how it's done in general. And as a listener, we very much enjoy it. And
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I appreciate. Yeah. And for me, I appreciate the craft of, we'll call them like traditional audiobooks, but I have a deep love for audio dramas.
Yes.
And, graphic audio sort of in this hybrid space of it's a direct adaptation of a book, but they're dramatized and they're full cast. I love things that it's this beautiful hybrid. And now post-COVID, the world of audio dramas has kind of seen a resurgence. So it's really cool to see that becoming more popular again.
Yes.
Yeah.
Agreed.
I agree.
It's honestly so hard to go from a regular audiobook to the graphic audio
for
now.
sure.
Most
and then
definitely.
going back again. You're like, wait a minute, where's the sounds?
Yeah, but wait, he just said it rumbled. I wanted a rumble.
Where are the growls?
Where's the growl?
Yes.
Yeah,
We need
where's the
Tamlin's growl. Yeah.
I mean, doesn't everybody? That should just be a ringtone.
It should be. I agree.
Maybe not. Maybe that might be a little too much.
Like, just,
sorry, yep, that's me. Gotta go.
Depends who you ask.
Yeah. Very true. Well, so many people are working from home now. Maybe it's fine.
Yeah.
I would put it on my phone. I work from home.
Would
I would totally do that.
Perfect.
Same.
It's a nice little niche market that he's got going.
Text tone, ringtone, sure, all of it.
Oh, different growls for different things. Yeah.
Yes.
You do like a bad growl when somebody you don't like is.
Yes.
Perfect.
Oh, we're on to something here.
I think so.
$1 million, copyright it now.
Now, who's gonna learn to growl?
Just head shakes and no.
Not it.
Okay, sorry to have derailed us. Out of the 4 ACOTAR books that you narrated, did you have a favorite one?
Probably Silver Flames. I mean, just because it was there's such a wide range that he gets to play, and he's had arcs in other books, but he's really in the other ones there as a foil to the other characters. And this, again, he gets his own. It's like, oh, he is one of the protagonists now. Like, his role is the role that we're watching. So that's been a personal favorite. Just, again, I got a lot to play with, and I love getting to play. So it gave me the most material to play with.
Yeah, and he had such a good story, too. So it's probably nice to be able to see how his story played out.
For sure. There's one scene, I know it wasn't in Silver Flames, but there's one scene where he's talking with the shopkeeper, and he just gives the donation and says, don't worry about it. He felt compelled, like his honor code said, we're going to take care of people. And that to me is Cassian's actual heart in a nutshell.
Yeah.
And that, and it always sticks out to me, and getting to play the big badass general and then that intimate moment of like, okay, I also understand the fallout of war. It was awesome to get to see both ends of that.
Yeah. I think you see that a lot with him after the war, when you could just like tell how guilty he felt about all the people, well, Illyrians that they had lost in it.
Yeah. He feels responsible, and at the end of the day, he is. And he respects the weight of his command. And he doesn't, at the end of the day, he's just like anyone. He doesn't want to let anyone down. And he keeps playing it over in his head, asking himself if he did. And no one can answer that because, it's war. So, again, just having that in my head in any scene we're doing after the wars battles take place always helped inform his emotional placement.
Okay, so two-part question. What did you think about the idea of the wingspan? And how did you feel recording the spicy scenes?
Okay.
On a completely change of topic.
Yeah. So you might need to how do you mean, how did I feel about wingspan?
Oh boy.
What the wingspan, the joke that they had, that the wingspan correlated to the size
I
of
see.
something else.
I mean, I just assumed he was packing, so it wasn't terribly surprising. You go into a room that confident, like you got to know something that other people don't. So I just assumed he was endowed, and he was very comfortable with anyone that saw it, and if he was asked about it, like, oh, you want to see it? Like, he's just that kind of guy.
I can see that.
So
yeah, he is.
Right. So, and as far as the spicy scenes, I mean, I think it's just like any intimate scene in any form of performing it. It's, where's the headspace at the moment? What serves the scene the best? Where is the emotional placement, and is it justified? And it's so much easier, I think, to play a scene when it's not just a random encounter. It's an actual, like, oh no, this is part of an arc. This is both an emotional and physical release for multiple characters. So having the emotional placement, I think, makes it easier to kind of feel where you're supposed to be as any character having an intimate moment. But yeah, so those went relatively smoothly.
So, Jon, are you a fan of fantasy books?
So I am a fan of what I'd call like light fantasy. I appreciate high fantasy. I am more of a fan of like young adult entry fantasy where it's very structured and there's world building, but you almost have to keep it approachable.
Okay.
And you can't introduce too much too fast because it's designed for younger readers. For me, I appreciate that because it's like threading a needle. So they have to have a world built that a younger audience is interested in. So there has to be a lot of information, but they can't overwhelm. The biggest thing, I get frustrated when I'm reading a fantasy book and I keep having to go to the glossary for like, wait,
yes.
okay, who's this from? Wait, like it breaks the flow for me of reading. So either if it is, say, a high fantasy or something that's written that's, again, more for an adult audience, then if they don't need you to jump back to a glossary, cool, I am all for it.
Right.
But I tend to lean more towards younger fantasy because I don't want to break the flow, and like I'm going to stay up all night reading it, so I might as well not need to break it up in chunks and needing to constantly remind myself, okay, who's this person? What?
Right.
Like, let me look at a map.
Where
let me
is this
track where they're
place?
going.
Yeah.
Yep. Where is it? Wait, why is this important that this is in a mountain? Oh, it's a mountain range.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Okay,
Totally
hang on. Let me go
get it.
back a few pages and recontextualize. So that's where I'm at.
Totally
And, you know,
understand that.
That's a good point. The maps
Yeah.
fuck me up. If I
Me
hear
too.
a name, I gotta go right back to it. I'm like, where is
Mhm.
it on this map?
And you know, when it is an audio drama, it's a lot easier to start being like, oh, that vocal, you know, thumbprint, so to speak, that voice print, I can assign to that person. So anytime I hear that voice print, I know it's this character.
Yeah,
I
it's
don't
true.
like, oh, if we have multiple characters that have similar names, but they're not the same person, this is where a multicast comes into play, because as long as those two people, they can sound similar but not identical, all of a
Mhm.
sudden it's so much easier as an audience to consume it, because you don't need to be reminded that they're two different people you already know. You can
Right.
hear a distinction. So again, why I really, really appreciate audio dramas, because it's kind of built in and you can just immediately consume it and binge the whole thing without ever needing to break the flow of how you're consuming it.
Do you have any
point.
favorites currently?
Ooh, so I just there's a new book that just came out by Christopher Paolini called Murtag, and it's part of his
Oh
series.
yeah.
Yeah, but again, in the younger audience. So I re-listened to the last book, Inheritance.
Aragon? Oh
Yep,
wait.
of the Aragon series. Yeah, or I think it's the Inheritance Cycle is what he's calling it now. So I re-listened to that. And then one of my all-time favorite just pieces of audio drama. It's very hard to find nowadays, but it still exists in some places. It's the Star Wars Dark Forces Heir to the Empire. It's a series, but it's a full cast, and they're adapted from books, so it's similar to graphic audio. Actually, they did it really interesting. There's no narrator. Everyone just turns into an inner monologue whenever they're talking about where their head's at, or they're narrating what they're thinking about at any given time. They're basically talking to themselves. And the way that whole production was done is like a masterpiece to me. So I'll listen to that constantly. And all of the performers are top tier. So it's a comfort production for me.
God, that
sounds
sounds so
interesting.
cool.
It's
I know.
really, and like Star Wars is such a sonically rich world, and I'm a huge Star Wars nerd, so not only did I already like it, but there's so much distinct audio from that universe
Right.
that you immediately know what something is just from the sound of it. So you don't even need to describe it. It's just, you know what the sound of a TIE fighter is, and all they have to do is play like a snippet and you're already right there.
Wow.
So
that sounds really, really interesting.
I gotta ask, have you been to Galaxy's Edge in Hollywood Studios?
I have, yes. I actually auditioned to play Savi, the lightsaber builder.
Oh, cool.
So I flew down to Florida for the audition. It was a whole process. They explained kind of how the whole setup would work. But yeah, so I actually auditioned for Galaxy's Edge.
Yes. So, can you tell us where else we can find your work and what you have in the works next?
So I'm pretty diligent about posting my work to my website, which is jonvertullo.com.
Okay.
And then I also am usually pretty good about updating LinkedIn, because apparently that's the only social media I can keep up with. But
Fair.
yeah, those two places, my website and LinkedIn, are where I keep up to date with the latest projects I'm working on. As far as the next projects, unfortunately, I've signed a whole truckload of NDAs for a bunch of things.
Mhm.
But that said, I'm in the middle of a nonfiction book right now that I'm narrating. I have a project that I'm shooting this weekend that I'm traveling for, so that'll be coming out at some point next year. And then as far as VO, it's some animation, some character work, and then hopefully more graphic audio in the near future.
That was going to be my next
Hopefully.
question for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always sort of semi-random. Like I'll just get an email, be like, "Hey," again, sort of like I was talking about. More often than not, it's a email from the director saying, "By the way, you play this person. When can you record?" So Cassian was sort of an exception that I didn't realize was the exception because it was only my second project with them. So yeah, now I just kind of keep an eye out on emails and I get to jump in and to many, many different worlds, which is always a blast.
That's so awesome.
Hopefully you get some, because I saw Graphic Audio announced a bunch of really popular books they're doing soon. So fingers crossed you got some on those.
Thank you very much. So in the interest of giving, being as how we are recording in the month of December, Mike and Heidi, the owners of Atlanta Voiceover Studio, have allowed me to give away access to their Intro to Voiceover video series. It's, I think, 16 videos. And it's basically an overview of the business, some performance technique, basically a primer for getting into the world of voiceover. And it's taught by one of my mentors and coaches, Brian Bremer. And he's a phenomenally talented person. Definitely look him up on IMDb. He's done quite a few very big projects. But they've allowed me to give away a code to get access to that. So if you share this podcast and tag at Atlanta Voiceover Studio, you will be automatically entered to win access to that video series. So again, that's at Atlanta Voiceover Studio, and just share this podcast and you're automatically entered.
And they have up until when?
They have up until the end of day on December 22nd. So from when this airs until end of day December 22nd. And that's when we kind of create the cutoff, and they'll go through, and everyone that's entered, they'll create a drawing, and then we will reach out to whoever won.
That
sounds
sounds amazing.
Good.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Atlanta Voiceover Studio. That's such a cool opportunity.
It is. I definitely will be entering.
Good. Yes, please do.
John, we can't thank you enough for joining us with this interview. We wish you well on all your projects, future projects. Like we said, we hope to be hearing you soon. Anybody want to say anything before we close it off?
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
you.
Do it.
We're big fans, so thank you.
I appreciate it very much.
It was so amazing.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you for hosting.
Sarah J. Maas projects. All right. Well, we will, I guess, talk to you later. Thank you so much.
Talk to you later.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, John.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right. Well, we hope you enjoyed our interview with John. We most definitely did. And make sure to enter the giveaway. So buckle up, bookworms. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.